Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajjanaranda Yashodanandana Brajjanaranda Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 3rd chapter, verses 15 to 17. I will read the Sanskrit and the translation here. If you have database link open, then you can also have the verse in front of you. I can ping it, I can post it in the chat. The other devotees can also read along. Yate me vikruta bhavas tatha te vikrutai saha nana virya pratak bhuta virajam janayantihi sannipatya samutpadya drishyante nugata iva prageva vidyamanatvan natesham iha sambhava evam bhavan bhutya anumeya lakshanair grahyair gunai san api tad gunagraha anavritavad bahir antaram nate sarvasya sarvatmana atma vastuna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Mahat Tattva, the total material energy, is undivided, but because of the material modes of nature, it appears to separate into earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Because of the living entity, because of the living energy, Jiva Bhuta, these separated energies combine to make the cosmic manifestation visible. But in fact, before the creation of the cosmos, the total energy is already present. Therefore, the total material energy never actually enters the creation. Similarly, although you are perceived by our senses because of your presence, you cannot be perceived by the senses nor experienced by the mind or words. Avan Manasa Gochara. With our senses, we can perceive some things, but not everything. For example, we can use our eyes to see, but not to taste. Consequently, you are beyond perception by the senses. Although in touch with the modes of material nature, you are unaffected by them. You are the prime factor in everything, the all-pervading, undivided supersoul. For you, therefore, there is no external or internal. You never entered the womb of Devaki. Rather, you existed there eternally. You existed there already. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse, it is a bit philosophical actually from its translation. I'm not going to read the purport in its entirety. It's a long purport. I'll just go back, keep coming back to the purport through the discussion. So we see that the Bhagavatam, when it begins, like the Bhagavatam, like this, the 10th canto, but when we go back, it starts with speaking about Krishna's devotees, the many pastimes that they had with the Lord, and we speak and we hear about many of the philosophical aspects, the creation of the universe, time, many other things, and which ultimately leads to the 10th canto, which is said to be the face of Lord Krishna. So similarly, even within the 10th canto, like now that we're here, we see that these first few chapters are basically setting the stage of like who is Krishna, what are his qualities and his the many activities, like not the activities, but the many things that he does when it comes to creation. So we just see like how these foundational things are like laid out, and eventually we'll come to like as the 10th canto progresses, we'll get into the more personal Leela of the Lord and his renowned pastimes. So in this verse, we see like Vasudev, he is praying to the Lord. Like at this point, like Krishna has appeared from the womb of Devaki, and this is in Mathura. And Vasudev, he is speaking, like he realizes that this is actually Krishna who has appeared, the Supreme Lord Narayan, who has appeared from the womb of his wife as their child in the prison. And he is speaking like verses in glorification of the Lord. The thing is, like Krishna never appeared in the womb, like he was already there. So that is what this verse is speaking about. So in the Gita, we see like when 15:15, Sarvasya Chaham Pridhi Sannivishto, Krishna says like I'm seated in the heart of every living being. And then we see in the 18th chapter like Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, like Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. So it's not that he had to appear. And this, like all these verses are basically showing that his presence is eternal. Then Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvam Chamai Pashyati. Like for someone who sees Krishna everywhere and sees him in everything, Krishna says that I am never lost to them and they are not lost to me. So we see like how Krishna is always present. And in this verse, like Prabhupada in the purport, he speaks about Karanadakshay Vishnu and the creation of the material universe and how like Krishna enters into it. So briefly, like how Prabhupada is, he has described this in other places also, but again, it's like Krishna, one of his expansions is Karanadakshay Vishnu. It's basically Mahavishnu, that he expands himself and then many universes are created. And while he creates these universes, he also enters these universes, like through his process of exhalation, he's creating these innumerable universes. And he is also entering these universes as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, each and every universe. And from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, we have Brahma in each of these universes. And then the same Garbhodakshay Vishnu also expands, and then he enters into each and every living entity as Karanadakshay Vishnu. And the same Karanadakshay Vishnu also enters each and every atom and also the space in between each and every atom, basically. So what this shows very clearly is that Krishna is that everything is within Krishna, basically, that this entire creation is emanating from one of the expansions of the Lord. And not just that the creation is within Krishna, but Krishna is also within everything. As Shirodakshay Vishnu, he has entered into the atoms, he has entered into our own hearts as a Paramatma. He has entered in between the atoms. So if we are able to just suspend our disbelief that like what we are seeing is matter, and we can actually perceive like this is actually Krishna's expansion, one of his energies that we are completely surrounded by, that we are immersed in. It really like wakes us up to our identities and to Krishna's like supreme identity. This is why, like when they say, it's okay. Yeah, thank you. When it is said like Krishna is all pervading, this is what is meant by such a statement, that he is everywhere, and that there is really no place where Krishna doesn't exist. In the Gita, it said like etad yonini bhutani sarvanti upadharaya. Of all that is material, this is from the 7th chapter, like Krishna says, like everything material and everything spiritual in this world, know that for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution of everything. the impersonalists, they understand how everything is within Krishna, within Brahman, but they sort of misidentify that, okay, we are going to merge into it and we are also going to become the Lord. But no, that is not how it is. Like the Brahma Jyoti, it is in the Gita, it is said like the Brahma Jyoti is an emanation. In the 14th chapter, it is like, as the Brahma Jyoti is an effulgence, it is emanating from the Supreme Lord. And from this Brahman effulgence, all the creation is taking place. So we see that the sun is everywhere. Like in the verse, in the translation, I'm sorry, Prabhupada speaks about the sun being everywhere, and yeah, you are the original source of the material energy, just as the sun is the source of the sunshine. The sunshine cannot cover the sun globe, nor can the material energy, being an emanation from you, cover you. You appear to be in the three modes of material energy, but actually the three modes of material energy cannot cover you. This is understood by the highly intellectual philosophers. In other words, although you appear to be within the material energy, you are never covered by it. So, so we basically see that even though Krishna has expanded and he is present here, even though we cannot fully perceive him, but we can't mistake that, okay, now Krishna is also just like us, even he's covered by the three modes of material nature. No, he's beyond that. In the same way that Krishna is in Golok Vrindavan and he's residing in his original transcendental form, but he is expanding himself. Like when we sing, like Ito Narsimo, Parato Narsimo, Yato Yami Tato Narsimo, Bahir Narsimo, Hridaye Narsimo. Basically, we are saying that Lord Nrsimhadev is here and he's also there. Wherever I go, Lord Nrsimhadev is there. Like he is also within a pillar. For a devotee can also see him within a pillar. And he is in the heart, Bahir Narsimo, Hridaye Narsimo, like Krishna or Lord Nrsimhadev, he is in the heart and he is outside as well. So we see all these many evidences in the scriptures of like Krishna's presence everywhere. We like this idea of this, not the idea, this explanation of the Krishna's expansions are spoken of in the Bhagavatam, even in the previous verses, and even so Srila Prabhupada is like really continuously repeating such facts to us just to drill in our minds that it is important that we understand that how Krishna is within everything that exists. And through these specific manifestations and how everything is within him, at that point, like once we get that clearly, then we can understand, like when we explain Sarva Karana Karanam.
That echo bothering you in the back?
Not so much.
Sure.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, maybe it can be turned down a bit. Thank you. In the 7th chapter, like Krishna says, like Bhavanam Janmanam Ante Janavan Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Like after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. I just want to speak about a pastime of Krishna, like how to just to get the point, like how everything is within Krishna. Like as a child, Krishna was eating dirt, and some of his Gopa friends, they tell Mother Yashoda that, see, your son is actually eating dirt and he's not eating the food that you've given him. Mother Yashoda, she starts to get worried, obviously, like a mother would for her child, that he's eating dirt and not eating prasad. And so she comes and she asks him, like, Krishna, what are you doing? Gopal, why are you eating dirt? Is that really true? Krishna, he says, like, no, it is not true. I'm not eating dirt. And we would wonder, like, how can the absolute truth, like Krishna is described as the absolute truth, like how can he say a lie? But Krishna, just to increase the Vatsalya ras with his mother, and to increase the reciprocation of love, these pastimes on the liberated platform is actually the highest truth. So we cannot consider this from our mundane understanding that, oh, Krishna is lying. And then Krishna eventually, he opens his mouth, and Mother Yashoda, actually, what does she see? She's quite surprised. She sees the entire universe. She sees herself. She sees earth. She sees herself. She sees herself looking into Krishna's mouth, and she sees the Virat Roop also. And she is quite bewildered. And Prabhupada says, like, whenever we in the material world, like, we end up in a situation which is beyond our understanding, like when we are put into difficulties and we cannot understand why something is happening, and we are also bewildered. So we have to take shelter of Krishna, like that is the only place ultimately that we can go to. And the easiest way to take shelter of him is by chanting his holy names. So Mother Yashoda, she is also chanting like Lord Narayan's names, because for her, Narayan is God and like Krishna is just her son. And Krishna, like baby Krishna, he's saying this, he again puts her into the Yoga Maya, under the influence of Yoga Maya, and she just forgets what she saw, and she's again like embracing Krishna as her child, and yeah, their Leela goes on. Sometimes, like, we see like the impersonalist, like here how we are describing like Krishna has a form. The impersonalist will say like, oh, the form is actually a limiting factor. The form is limiting God to like, oh, just this person right here. But that is not the case. Like, that is because of our own limited experience that we would describe Krishna, like someone of impersonalistic tendencies would describe Krishna like that. But God is unlimited, and like it is described in this verse of like, he's present everywhere, but he is also present in his own eternal abode of Golok Vrindavan and doing his own pastimes over there, eternal pastimes over there. And Prabhupada, he also describes in this verse like, says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not perceivable through the gross material senses. It is said that Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, etc., cannot be understood by material senses. Only to one who is engaged in pure devotional service under proper guidance is he revealed. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. One can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead always within oneself and outside if one has developed the transcendental loving attitude towards him. Thus, for people in general, he is not visible. So we see like why even we cannot, like we can, like I said, we can suspend our disbelief, but in reality, we cannot see Krishna. Right? We see the deities, we see, we come out and we see the world, but we can't always perceive Krishna. Like it requires purification of the heart, purification of our minds. And like in actuality, like Krishna's, like when we in actuality, like when we eat Krishna's prasad, like we are supposed to, like a pure devotee would feel that, okay, I can taste Krishna's saliva in Krishna's prasad. When Prabhupada would see the deities, he is actually, like it is said in many places, like Prabhupada is interacting with the devotees. He gets, there is one small pastime that Sachinand Maharaj relates. Like one time he was doing the seva of like washing the Maha plates, and he was always in a rush. He was young at that time, and he apparently didn't do such a good job. So the pujari would bring the plate from the altar into the pujari room, and then Sachinand Maharaj back then he would just wash them, and apparently like Krishna told Prabhupada, like, who's the devotee who's washing my plate? He's not doing such a good job. And Prabhupada told that to the Pujari, and then Pujari told that to Maharaj, and like Maharaj was like, wow, Krishna is actually communicating with Prabhupada and Krishna are like interacting with each other. So for a pure devotee, like they don't just see stone or paper or wood, they see the person, like they don't hear just the holy name, they see Krishna in the holy name. So this requires for us to also keep going on the process of purification that has been described in our scriptures. And this works by, like, basically we have to submit to the will of the Lord, like instead of surrendering to our own selfish tendencies, our own plans of our own ego. Once we surrender to Krishna's will, to the will of Guru and the senior devotees and the scriptures, then we are basically walking on the process of purification. In the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, it is said like Atasi Krishna Namadi na bhavet grayam indriyai sevon mukhe hi jivado swayam evas pratyada. So the process of purification is described here. How do we purify ourselves? Like sevon mukhe hi jivado, like we have to serve with the tongue. And how do we serve with the tongue? We have to eat only the remnants of Krishna Prasad, basically. Whatever has been offered to Krishna. And Krishna describes in the Gita, like what are the things that he eats, patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam. And we are supposed to eat only Krishna Prasad. And the other is to chant his names and to speak, to repeat what has been said in the scriptures by the other acharyas and by the other devotees, to like loyally serve them by repeating their words and their instructions. And thus the tongue is purified, and by that is described here, like through that then we are also purified. This one time Kadam Kanan Maharaj was asked this question, like, oh, how can the tongue is such a small organ, like how can just the purification of the tongue result in purification of the entire being? Like Maharaj gave the example, like if you look at the ship, you don't see the rudder under the ship. Like the rudder is something very small and the ship is like huge, it's humongous. But the rudder can basically guide the ship, whether it goes this way, that way, or what. So he's like, even though the tongue looks small, but it is, the purification starts from there. Like just in my own personal life also, what I've seen, like I read the Gita the first time like around 15 years ago, and at that time I felt like, oh, Prabhupada keeps repeating the same thing, like all the verses look the same. It seemed so like repetitive, and I was spacing out repeatedly, like this, almost like I felt it was boring. But now, after being in the process of Krishna consciousness, of doing some sadhana bhakti, when I read the Bhagavatam, there is like, wow, there is like so much nectar here. There is so many instructions that we can take to our lives. Like Krishna is speaking. Like sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm going through something. We just open the Gita, we just open the Bhagavatam. Like Prabhupada is like giving an answer to us. So the scriptures are coming alive. And the more we become purified, the more alive the scriptures come, the holy name comes, the deities, the prasad, the dham, the devotees, everything becomes like more dynamic, more alive. And it is not, we won't have that like an experience of like having to drag our feet through this. So this is something that all of us can aspire for, including myself. And in this and why does Krishna appear in all these forms, as deity, as prasad, as Bhagavatam, as Guru, as instructions, as the devotees? This is just out of his kindness, his infinite kindness, that he's coming into our lives. One time the devotees asked Prabhupada, like, oh, Prabhupada, like we've all become devotees, like aren't we quite fortunate? Prabhupada just corrected them, like, no, it's not your, like you didn't create your good fortune, like I created your good fortune. So where would we have been without Prabhupada coming into our lives, without his devotees, his instructions coming in? Like we would just have been floating in this ocean of material suffering, lifetime after lifetime. And we can see that this infinite kindness, this like costless mercy of Prabhupada is really like picking us up from this ocean one by one, and we're all in the process of like waking up, of becoming Krishna conscious. And in the Gita also, Krishna says, like, why does he appear? Like, he is coming to help the devotees and to destroy the miscreants. And he appears to descend, but in actuality, he is always here, like described in the verse. Like, he is only revealing himself. Like Prabhupada, a news reporter asked Prabhupada, like, why have you come? Like, why are you teaching us a new religion? Prabhupada said, like, I haven't come to teach you anything new. I'm just come to remind you of what you've forgotten. So we've forgotten our eternal relationship with Krishna. And Prabhupada, by his costless mercy, has come to like wake us up. Like by our own material senses, like Krishna is unapproachable, but he comes through his incarnations, through his instructions. And even though we don't have any qualifications, we are in receipt of this mercy. And how do we qualify ourselves? Like, what is it that we can do? Yes, apart from like purifying through our tongue, it's like we can have this internal attitude of like humility, of surrender, of being grateful and submissive to the senior devotees, to our gurus, to the instructions of the scriptures. And through this process of like a humble surrender, we can make ourselves actually qualified. Like Krishna is so great, like, and Prabhupada was asked, like, how do he would just ask, like, in the early days there was no need to spend a lot of time with chanting and being a devotee. Prabhupada would just ask simple questions to the devotees, like, okay, who are you? Devotees would say, I'm a spirit soul, Prabhupada. And who is Krishna? Krishna is the supreme spirit. And what is your relationship? I'm supposed to serve Krishna eternally. And Prabhupada would be like, bus, this is, you understood. You understood the actual philosophy. And by this humble mood, we become qualified to receive Prabhupada's mercy, our Guru's mercy. In the purport, Prabhupada speaks about like the example of the king. It is said that just because Krishna has expanded himself doesn't mean that he has lost his personal existence. So it says, Prabhupada says, to refute such arguments, the Lord says, I am everywhere and everything is in me, but I am still aloof. For example, a king heads a government, which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still, one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. That is a crude example. Similarly, all the manifestations that we see and everything that exists, both in this world and in the spiritual world, are resting on the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The creation takes place by the diffusion of his different energies, and as stated in the Gita, he is everywhere present by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energies. So I heard like Giriraj Maharaj, the way he expanded on this point is like the king, even though everything is in his power, in his kingdom, like even the prison, for example, is under the king's power. And the king can just come into the prison to inspect, like, okay, how are things here? Are the conditions good for the prisoners? Are they actually doing things to rectify their wayward behavior? Are they acting in good ways? So for the king, like, it seems like, oh, he has come into prison just like the prisoner. And the king is also can be perceived as like one of the prisoners. Like Krishna can be perceived like, oh, when he comes to this material world, he is also under the influence. But no, the king can come in and he can go out anytime. Like there is no one who can stop the king. He is the one who created the prison. He's the one who created the rules for the the facilities for correction, but he by himself is above and beyond that. And similarly, Krishna also comes for this purpose. Like he comes to remind us that he does his pastimes like 5,000 years ago when he came, and 500 years ago when Krishna again came as Mahaprabhu. He comes to remind us that we don't actually belong here. We belong with him in the spiritual world. We can to sing with him, to dance with him, to eat with him, to basically play with him and have fun with him. The one more example that is given is like the cloud can cover our eyes, but the cloud cannot actually cover the entire sky. So in the third chapter of the Adi Leela, Prabhupada like uses Prabhupada like comes up with this beautiful phrasing. See, and Sachin Maharaj has this podcast. It is called like Above the Clouds. And in the third canto recently, I read this verse that it is described that the conditioned spirit soul is under the clouds, but when we sit on an airplane and we fly on a cloudy day, we can actually go above the clouds and we can see like, oh, it is quite bright and sunny out there. It's not really cloudy like the way we perceive things. So Krishna can be covered to our eyes, but his presence cannot be covered by Maya. And so we basically can so this is basically like, in a sense, like Krishna's presence in the spiritual world is eternal. His activities there are eternal. His activities, even in Boma Vrindavan, if our eyes are pure, if our heart is pure, are eternal and are taking place even now. But we don't perceive it. It is like almost like Achintya Bheda Bhed. Like it is happening, but we don't see it. It is there, but we can't perceive it. So basically, like to just to conclude, all these prayers might seem repetitive in the sense that, oh, Krishna is God, he's supreme, he's everything, he's everywhere, and we are small spirit souls. But this is so that our false ego, which is the main reason why we came to this material world, why we left Krishna in the first place, our false ego can crack and we can actually surrender to Krishna. Like this impersonalistic tendencies that even we as devotees, like if you're actually aware of Krishna, then when we say Krishna, we should see his presence. We should, like if I'm talking to a person, I'm more alert than when I'm chanting Krishna's names. Why is that? Like, yes, I can perceive. Yeah, Sid is sitting right in front of me. Like if I'm talking to him, I'll be paying attention, or at least I'll try to be personal with him, to make eye contact and speak with him in a way that, okay, I'm listening to you. But when we chant Krishna's names, that's not my experience for sure. It's like we are sleepy, we are tired, we are hungry, and multitasking and all those things. So this purification of the false ego is required so desperately that if we can't wake up to that eternal relationship, our eternal relationship with Krishna, then we really like not made the best of this human form of life. And to come back to the point which I mentioned during the class, like by being humble and by being submissive and being grateful, and having that, like Mahaprabhu described, Trinada Pisanichena Taroriva Sahisna Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadari. By having this like humble and submissive attitude towards the devotees, towards Guru, and taking necessary help where required, of course. Like we can't understand everything. If you need some guidance, we take that from the senior devotees, so we can walk through our doubts. And by this process, then we can also like break out of this prison of the material world, and we can finally be with Krishna again, serving him and serving his devotees and serving the world, basically, like bringing everyone closer to the Lord. Yeah, I would like to pause here. If there are any comments, any reflections, suggestions, corrections, please. Some devotees are here, some are online.
Hare Krishna, Bala Krishna Das Prabhu. I just wanted to quickly give my appreciation for one of the points that you made early on. I really liked when you said about us waking up to our true spiritual identities and to Krishna's supreme identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I could really relate to that because I just recently woke up this morning. So it's just that whole idea of if we can make that a daily practice. And I had this visual, I kind of drew a picture for myself of if I could wake up in the morning and just be like, Hare Krishna, I'm a spirit soul. And then just think of Krishna being like, yes, and I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of the sun or something. I don't know. But thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we have to remind ourselves every day. One time, like Radhanath Maharaj, I heard it from one of Sachin Maharaj's classes, like one devotee, like apparently Radhanath Maharaj told him, like, or I'm not sure, like I don't want to misquote, but basically the point being, like what was told was, every morning when I wake up, like I've forgotten that I'm trying to be a devotee. I'm again an atheist. So I had to remind myself, like I had to wake up, I had to chant, I had to serve, I had to read, I had to do so many things. So this forgetfulness is slowly but steadily reduced. So thank you for being so honest and sharing so frankly that it's a struggle. Yeah.
Bala Krishna Prabhu, beautiful class. I just wanted to correct you quickly. I'm joking. I wanted to ask a question. Are there any nuances in Nanda Maharaj's mood and Mother Yashoda's mood? So is it that she does all the worrying and he stays chill as a father? Is there a nuance like that between the two?
So you're asking if Nanda Maharaj ever worried about Krishna, or if Mother Yashoda doing all the worrying and Nanda Maharaj is?
Yeah, what's the division of labor between the two?
I mean, I'm not qualified to answer that question, but I can relate one pastime which I've heard where when Krishna, he grows, like, I don't know if he grows like 5 years or 6 years of age old. And till then, he was just like herding the cows in and around their home in Vrindavan. And as Krishna is growing older, like even he's having this urge, like, oh, I want to herd the cows, the big cows, and I want to like go further out in Vrindavan and go to all the forests and like let them eat and also roam around with my friends. So Nanda Maharaj is very worried that how do I trust that Krishna will be okay when he goes out, when he goes so far away, when he's taking care of so many big cows? Will he be safe? Will he be able to come back? Will he be able to bring all the cows back? So there was like Nanda Maharaj's brother. I don't remember his name, if someone can help me, but Nanda Maharaj, he actually has a meeting with his brother and with the other senior Brajvasis, and they all come together and they decide like, oh, Krishna is okay, don't do this. And when Krishna is coming into the assembly, he's very nervous, like, is Nanda Baba going to allow me to go to take the cows or not? Then Nanda Baba, he says like, okay, you can go. Like, so Krishna and like Mother Yashoda, they all burst into happiness. So yes, so there are incidents where even Nanda Baba is worried about Krishna. So
okay, good to know.
I think Angelica has her hand up.
Yes. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for this class. There are so many beautiful points, and I feel like I was such a beautiful reminder to hear that the holy name is our friend. And just as we are speaking with a friend and we want to listen and tune in and really give our friends our presence, the same and if not more is required of us to truly connect with the holy name. And I have a pastime I read yesterday from Prabhupada's Nectar about him granting his disciple a transcendental vision. And it's like a page-long pastime. If you allow me to read it, I would love to read it for you.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Okay. So this is Hridayananda Maharaj recalling this. One morning, we are walking with Srila Prabhupada in Battery Park in New York City. On this particular morning, Srila Prabhupada wasn't talking and he told us, chant Hare Krishna. He wanted us to chant japa and he was also chanting japa. By a stroke of good fortune, my japa was coming out nicely that day. I was chanting my japa very enthusiastically and Prabhupada appreciated. He was encouraging me by his glances. It was an intimate, confidential thing. I was feeling ecstatic and Prabhupada was glancing at me, acknowledging my ecstasy. As my spiritual master, he was encouraging me and I was also looking to him with great gratitude and reverence, and understanding that all of my ecstasy was actually coming from his lotus feet. Then, as we were walking in the park, I suddenly realized we were in Vrindavan. By Prabhupada's mercy, the whole park had been transformed into the spiritual world. I felt I was in Vrindavan. As I was walking and chanting more enthusiastically, I realized that Prabhupada, by his causeless mercy upon me, had manifested the spiritual world within the park in Brooklyn. I became more ecstatic, realizing that somehow or other, Radha and Krishna and Lord Balaram and the cowherd boys and everyone were somehow in that park. As I was realizing this, Prabhupada glanced at me and I realized that he was giving me this special mercy. I was somehow getting this wonderful insight, looking at him with gratitude as he glanced his approval because I was chanting enthusiastically. Of course, my realization was completely insignificant compared to Prabhupada's understanding, but still, I was like his child, and he was encouraging me in my ecstasy. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angelica. So, apropos, sorry? Which Vasudev Prabhu is asking, which part is this?
This is number 50.
Which park? Which park? Sorry.
Which park? Battery Park.
Okay.
And which Swami again was that?
Hridayananda Goswami.
Oh, wow. Oh. Prabhu, I have a question actually.
Hey, Gail, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, my question is about, and that was, thank you so much, Angelica, for sharing that. That was completely amazing, that story.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelica. Really appreciate like that. Also, apropos to the verse that we read and to the purport. Thank you for sharing the pastime.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. My question is trying to reconcile a couple of facts here. On the one hand, we always hear that we cannot see Krishna with our material vision. But Krishna has appeared to us in his deity form so that we can see him with our material vision. But at the same time, we hear that when we're seeing the deity, we're not actually seeing him. So how to reconcile this? We're seeing him in the deity form, but we're not really seeing him.
I'll try to answer this as best as I can, but for the other devotees like Arjun Prabhu, Adi Purush Prabhu, or anyone else who want to, or anyone online, if you want to also say something, please do. I mean, there are different levels of seeing, right? What, like the pastime which Hridayananda Maharaj is speaking of, and the pastime like where Sachinand Maharaj, like Prabhupada was told by Krishna, like, oh, the plates are not being washed properly. So for a pure devotee's vision, the deity is Krishna and his complete manifestation. There is nothing lacking in the deity, so to say, in their eyes. Like for us, like we see the beauty of the Lord, like the pujaris do such a good job, not a job, like such wonderful seva of like dressing the deity. So we can appreciate the beauty, we can see some aspects of Krishna's beauty, but most of us, we don't see the entire gamut of what Krishna has to offer. Like if Prabhupada, by his costless mercy, is able to bring Vrindavan into Brooklyn, we don't see Vrindavan all the time. Like even when most of us go to Vrindavan, we just see like the pigs and the dirt and the pollution and the noise and the rapid construction, and we don't see what is happening behind. So yes, we see and we don't see. We see only some aspects of Krishna's divine presence, his form, his name, his pastimes. This is as far as I can think of now. But if anyone else wants to, or I hope that sort of helped you, Gail. But if you have something, please share. So,
well, I mean, it kind of correlates with the best way I can understand myself. What you said, that okay, we are seeing Krishna, but maybe it's just a matter of depth of realization. Maybe when we are seeing him on the altar, our depth of realization is only theoretical, maybe that this is Krishna, and maybe as I become more and more purified, my realization that I'm seeing Krishna on the altar will increase, so that I don't just see him as a statue, because right now, I accept that I'm seeing Krishna on the altar, but my realization is so theoretical that it doesn't go beyond, the paint or the marble or like that. And I'm also thinking, I don't know if I'm quoting Chaitanya Charan Prabhu correctly, but I think he says something like, it's not that he's not just paint and the marble and so on. It's just that he is that and beyond, So it's like we don't have to deny that we're seeing paint and marble, but is that he's not limited to that, or something like that. That's how I understood him. But thank you very much for your answer.
yeah, I mean, like what you said is right. Basically, our depth of vision is only goes so far. It's one time I heard this, like, if we really love Krishna, then when we look at the deities and we close our eyes, we should be able to remember every little detail, like what is the color of his dhoti, the necklace, the turban, this and that. But how much do we actually remember? Like we just have darshan for a few minutes and then we go on with our days. So if there is like really, if our eyes are anointed with that salve of love, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, so if we see Krishna, then we will be able to like completely absorb every little detail about his presence into our hearts, into our consciousness, and carry that with us throughout the day, all the time. So, yeah, thank you, Gail, for sharing that. And yeah, Vrajyari Prabhu, thank you for, yeah, Vrajyari Prabhu, he said, like, there is a spectrum depending on our advancement and Krishna's mercy, but everyone benefits, even the non-devotees.
Monkey has a question.
Offer.
Hey, Hare Krishna.
Did you want to ask your question first?
Yes, Haribol, Angel.
Okay. Thank you for class today. It's been very thoughtful. It's caused very many thought images for me, and I appreciate this as an artist. So thank you. Yesterday, the woman who was teaching was talking about plants, vegetables wanting to get into the soup pot and wanting to go. We went to feed Krishna. And so I find when I try to think about who Krishna is in these very specific ways, it's difficult. I think that's what we're all describing, is it's a thing to learn to yearn for and to desire a taste for. I find if I start thinking about simpler things like the vegetables, the trees, the flowers being alive, that this helps me get in the right mood to think even more about what does Krishna's dhoti look like? What does Krishna's jewelry look like? What are these finer intricacies? And that it's a certain magic that gets lost, and that if we can hold on to it, it brings out this brightness that is really glorious to the world, like coloring our coloring books in. What color are we using for Krishna today? And so if we start small with remembering our connection to these little things, we can do bigger things like Krishna. This helps me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, sharing that sense of curiosity. Like the devotees would describe Prabhupada, like even though he's such a great acharya, but he also carried this like childish sense of curiosity about him. Like he would just be curious about every little thing. Like, well, what do you do? How do you eat? How do you dress? What does this culture work? What do you mean by this when you say this? Like understanding different cultures. So yes, we have to carry that like curiosity within our hearts when we see everything. Yeah, Krishna.
Hemangi has a question in the chat. You mentioned that Prabhupada mentioned in one of the interviews that because of him, he made so many devotees. It's definitely because of Guru's mercy. But isn't the final mercy coming from Krishna? Also, when a neophyte listens to such a thing, they may question about the Guru's humility. How do we understand that? That's a question from Hemangi.
So I sorry, Anand Bihari Prabhu, I didn't catch the second question. When
a neophyte hears that I'm making disciples, they may question Guru's humility. And she says that isn't the ultimate mercy coming from Krishna? Is it that Guru gives Krishna or Krishna gives Guru? Something like that. I hope I got it right.
I mean, if I understand the question right, the Guru is representing Krishna. Guru is a transparent via medium. They are not independent. Like the Guru's first and only duty is to bring us to Krishna. So when the Guru says that, like so the Guru, so that is my first response. The response to your first question, like the Guru is only representing Krishna. So there is no the mercy is ultimately coming from Krishna, but the Guru is acting like in the present, in the here and now. And in other parts of the scriptures, it's also described like the Guru is actually coming to this material world. Like Prabhupada came to the East Village with 2 heart attacks and everything. So in that sense, Prabhupada is even more merciful than Krishna. That Krishna didn't appear to everyone's eyes, but Prabhupada was walking here in this neighborhood amongst the hippies and everyone. So the Guru could be understood that he's actually even more merciful than Krishna in that sense of the term. That's one. And the second one, which you said, like, is the Guru being proud when they say, like, I am creating devotees? Like in the Gita, when you see Krishna is saying, like, oh, I am creating everything. I am the source of both the material and the spiritual worlds. But later on in the Gita, he's like in the 18th chapter, he's also reassuring us. He's saying that Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So yes, on the one side, we might feel like, okay, Krishna is being egotistical by saying like, oh, I am God, I've created everything. But he's also assuring us that you just surrender unto me and I will give you all protection. So there are like both sides to this understanding. There are like two ways of looking at it. And when Krishna says something, then it is actually right. Like only someone like him can make such a statement. Like a demigod can't make such a statement, or a embodied person can't make such a statement, but Krishna can. And all the scriptures and everything is meant to like bring us to that point. Like we can go to the president of the country, like the president can say, oh, I can do anything for you. And which is true, like the president can fix our plumbing issues, and he can also fix like bigger problems that we could have, bigger worldly problems. So we can't say like, oh, the president or the prime minister is being egotistical. Yes, they've been given that power. In the case of Krishna, of course, he is not given. He carries it within himself. So I hope that helps.
Can I quickly add something there that, you
Yeah,
know,
give us one second. It's 8:02. The Pujari might open. So if you
yeah.
quick com-
Really quickly, I just want to say that even if the guru says something like, you know, I have made so many disciples or brought so many disciples, his consciousness is never that I have done it independently of my own strength. So that would take away that ego. You know, he might say that, but in his consciousness, he wouldn't have that mood that I have done so independently. That's all. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Gil. So we'll conclude here. Thank you so much for participating, and thank you for coming, and thank you for all the online comments of appreciation. I'm very grateful and touched by everything. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bala Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Beautiful class. Beautiful. Thanks everyone for participating, and see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We're looking at the deity, and the deity is looking back at us. That Srila Prabhupada's guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our whole concept, it's called Dri something, Dri, when it's not that you are checking Krishna out, it's you presenting yourself before the deity. It's just in addition to all the wonderful points that Balakrishna Prabhu was making. Okay.